So from the nation's debt and unemployment to the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street, the stage is set for what could be the biggest battle for the White House and Congress ever. Joining me now for more political analyst and former Assemblyman Leroy Jones Jr., who is a partner of 1868 Public Affairs, and former State Senator Richard LaRosa, who is the founder of solutionsfornewjersey.org. Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us, and welcome to the show. Now, members of both parties have failed to come to an agreement as part of the Super Committee. As this is another example, or is it, of just how far apart each party in Congress is overall? Mr. LaRosa first.
Well, I think it's a lot of self-serving. I mean, people are posturing over and over, and the Super Committee was anything but super. I mean, the net sum gain is that if they got done what they were supposed to get done, they would have cut $1.3 or $4 trillion over 10 years, in spite of the fact that we have a $15 trillion deficit right now. If they don't do anything, the automatic cut is $1.3 trillion. So when push comes to shove, it's a lot of political posturing, and ultimately nothing really ever gets done.
You know, I would agree wholeheartedly with Dick, Brenda. The the whole Super Committee was obviously a charade. The only thing that they did agree on was they couldn't agree, and we're now in an environment that we can end up with automatic cuts, which can be somewhat devastating to the Defense Department. $600 billion worth of automatic cuts there. So we're in an environment now where as we get into 2012, it becomes more and more political, and it looks like the debate will center around the debt situation and the nation's economy from a political standpoint, because the Super Committee I agree with Dick, is anything but did not conclude its business for the nation's people.
Speaking politically, how much of an impact do you think it's going to have on next year's election?
The Super Committee, I think it's going to be minimal at best, because because what's going to happen is
on the White House, members of Congress.
I think it's going to because if they achieve what they needed to achieve, somebody would have tried to take credit. They didn't achieve anything, so they're going to try to blame each other. The question is, who's better at blaming the other side is who will benefit from it. But when the net sum dollar amount becomes irrelevant, there's really nobody to blame. If anything, they both need to be blamed. Both parties are equally at fault for not getting anything done.
You feel the same way?
I do. It's politics at its best. It's politics 101. It's who do you blame? Who do you throw the most mud on? Everybody's shopping for a seat in the White House, and the only means to get there is to talk about what the current president didn't do, what he can't do, how he can't do it, and that's not healthy for the nation, the economy, and the thousands of individuals that are jobless, homeless, whatever their plight might be. Their business is not being done, and that in itself is a travesty.
Well, just to put that in perspective, the rating, the favorability ratings for Congress, I think, is in single digits. So.
Okay. And speaking of the high unemployment rate when it comes to re-election efforts on the part of President Obama, if the election were today, do you think he'd win?
It would be very difficult. The difficulty is that right now, no one knows who his opponent is going to be. It's going to probably end up being the last man standing, and at this point, nobody knows who that's going to be.
Or woman.
Or woman. Everybody has their baggage. The irony of it is the so-called current leader, Newt Gingrich, all of his baggage has been exposed for a long time. So the question is, what can they come up with new? But the fact of the matter is that right now, nobody is a front-runner on the Republican side, and I think right now it looks like that President Obama stands a good chance of being reelected.
Absolutely. There's when you look at the Republican candidate field for president, they look like a bunch of second-tier game show hosts, and they're off on message. They're not resonating. There's not one individual that has a message that resonates, who breaks away from the pack. And back to your question, if the election were held today, Barack Obama is president for a second term.
There was one message, though, that really stood out recently in one of the debates, and that being the subject of immigration. And Newt Gingrich has, of course, gone to the head of the pack. What's your reaction?
Well, again, I think intellectually he has been there. I think the fact that he knows the process, he knows the system, he can articulate it better than probably any of the other people that are candidates today. And I think his ability to speak his mind, be very clear about it, and bring experience in terms of how the government works, I think it makes him an extremely viable candidate to be where he is right now. But the question is, can he sustain it? Because everybody who's had their opportunity in a fish barrel, they've all got knocked down.
Yeah, I would agree with Dick. Newt Gingrich is, an institutional man. He's a historian. He's a person of Congress, and he understands the institution. I think as his balloon would rise, his baggage would pull it down. I mean, the personal side of an individual seeking the highest offer in the land is often put under a microscope, and when that happens to him, that will completely implode his campaign.
Regulation in Wall Street brought to attention again this week when John Corzine is being called before Congress to talk about MF Global. Your reactions?
Certainly there needs to be more scrutiny. Regulation, I don't know. I kind of look at it the way we used to look at campaign finance reform. What it ends up doing is making people become more creative in terms of finding ways to cheat. So I don't know whether regulation is the answer as much as it is having more auditing opportunities in place.
Sometimes when you look at more regulation, it's more regulation on top of regulations. If it's kind of dusting off what is currently in place and enforcing it, and funding it so that its enforcement is intense, it's direct, and it alleviates the issues that occurred with MF, then that's perhaps where we need to focus on what currently is on our regulations book.
Okay, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
If you have ideas about topics you'd like to see discussed, log on to my9tv.com and click on Public Affairs. We want to hear from you. You can also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. That's all for today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. For My9, I'm Brenda Blackman, and we'll see you next week on New Jersey Now.